Welcome to the West Virginia Attorney Podcast, where we talk about all things legal, whether it be criminal defense, DUI, personal injury, car accidents, med mal, whatever you want to talk about within that realm. That's what we're going to talk about on this podcast. And this is geared towards clients when you want to find out information on what you need to know to choose a lawyer. Now, this is not legal advice. We do not have an attorney-client relationship, but this is just legal tips, the things you need to know when choosing a lawyer. So welcome. I look forward to talking to you. I look forward to you engaging as we go forward on this podcast. All right, so welcome to this episode of the West Virginia Injury Lawyer Podcast, where we talk about all things personal injury. Now, we've talked about vehicle injuries in our previous episode, episode 2. If you haven't listened to it, please log on and take a listen to it after this. We talked about car accidents. We talked about traffic accidents. We talked about trucking accidents. Now we're going to talk about the other accidents. Let's talk about slip and falls. Let's say you're at the casino and there is a defect on the property. There's a defect on the sidewalk or a defect inside of the casino, and everyone's having a good time. And all of a sudden you slip and fall, you trip over something as a result of not having a safe environment in that casino. You may be entitled to compensation. Let's say you're at a local Walmart or your local Target or your local Kroger or anywhere in West Virginia where you're shopping, and all of a sudden there is a defect in the shopping market. A lot of times we hear about banana peels. It's really not banana peels as the biggest issue. It's the small little grapes that are on the floor. And they didn't inspect that area to make sure it was clear of all the defects on the sidewalk or on the shopping floor. And all of a sudden you have an accident in that store on that property. You may be entitled to compensation. But also it comes into play whether or not you are in, obviously, your right mind. So if you're in a casino and a shopping place, you obviously don't want to be drinking. You don't want to be intoxicated, because that can be a defense. Hey, you were just intoxicated and that's why you fell. That's why you're not able to see where you were going, or you didn't watch where you were going. You assumed the risk. You saw the defect and you went there anyway. That's why you want to make sure you hire an attorney, because they're going to try, similar in car and trucking accidents, they're going to try and resolve that case relatively quickly. For example, you're in a store, you have an accident, immediately you're going to the back. Well, what happened? You're going to fill out an accident report. And they're going to talk to you about, well, how do you want to be compensated for this? Well, is there something we can do? Is there anything we can do to make sure you feel comfortable moving forward? Can we offer you anything? Any little small thing they offer you could be seen as a settlement of your action against that company. So you want to make sure you fill out the accident report, take a picture of the accident report, get the names, take a picture of the location, take a picture of the defect that's on the property, whether it be in the parking lot, whether it be inside of the store. Take a picture of it, because that thing, it could change over time. They could fix it afterwards. Now, all of a sudden, you go back a couple of days later, that defect is no longer there. Your attorney sends an investigator there. It's no longer there because they have fixed it. And now all of a sudden, you're basing it off of memory. So you want to make sure you take pictures of the accident report, take pictures of the defect that's in the road or in the sidewalk, in the parking lot, inside of the store. Take pictures of the accident report and make sure you get that to your attorney. And also in West Virginia, there's such things as catastrophic injuries, nursing home injuries, injuries at different locations, different sporting events, whether you be at a WVU game, whether you be at Marshall at a football game or any other football game, high school football game. And there are injuries that happen there as a result of not being able to render that place safely. They haven't inspected the place and make sure it's safe for people they've invited to come there and participate in that activity. They have a duty, and if they breach that duty and you become injured as a result of that breach, you may be entitled to compensation. So it's always important to make sure you contact an attorney anytime you are injured on the property of someone else. Contact an attorney immediately, because a lot of things could disappear and it could hurt your case. Now, as a personal injury lawyer, I cannot stress enough the need for you to seek medical attention as a result of your injuries. Soon after your injuries, after you leave the scene of the accident, or soon after you leave the scene of the incident, please seek out a medical professional. Go to the emergency room, go to your PCP, go to a Health Plus or whatever clinic you can go to. Document those injuries. And here is why. Because if it gets later on in the case and they find out that you didn't go to the doctor immediately, it becomes an issue of whether or not you really were injured. They can argue that, oh, you really didn't feel anything. You weren't that injured in the first place. You only went to the doctor when the attorney told you to go. You only went to the doctor when you thought you could have gotten some money. No, you want to go to the doctor immediately to document your injuries, even if you feel okay. Let the medical professional who went to medical school, who's really trained in this, let them tell you that, okay, this is either going to be okay or it's not going to be okay. And if they tell you you need follow up, please do the follow up. If they tell you you need to seek a chiropractor, please go through the visits. If they tell you you need physical therapy, rehabilitation, please go through all of the rehabilitation and or the therapy or both and finish it all the way through. If you stop midway through and at that point you stop everything, it is presumed that your injuries have been healed and they will treat you as such when you're trying to negotiate a settlement. So if you're saying that, oh, I've been injured and it's still hurting up until this day, well, ma'am or sir, you stopped going to treatment 2 years ago. You stopped going to treatment 6 months ago. So how are you saying you're still injured if you stop going to treatment? Your treatment is aligned with how you feel. Your treatment is aligned with how you are injured. So please go seek a professional, follow up with all the treatment, go through all the appointments and keep all the information and give that to your attorney. Now, many times on injuries that are occurring in West Virginia as a result of the negligence of someone else, sometimes the person is already injured. Sometimes they are injured as a result of something else, a sports injury or a childhood injury or something else that has ailed them at the time they are injured by someone else. And now you're dealing with the aggravation of a pre-existing condition. That doesn't mean you're not entitled to compensation. It just changes the narrative a little bit. It changes the analysis a little bit. Now, they are to treat you as if they treat you as you come. If you are injured previously, it does not decrease the liability of the negligent person. It may negotiate, it may change the compensation you are entitled to. However, it doesn't mean that the injury didn't happen as a result of negligence of someone else. It just so happens that you are already injured through something else, or you already had an injury. They are to treat you as they find you. And if they are responsible for your injuries, regardless of how you felt at the time you were injured, they are still responsible. Let's talk about some other things we see all throughout the state of West Virginia. Let's talk about nursing home injuries. A lot of times your loved one is in a nursing home and you place them in a nursing home thinking that that nursing home and all of their employees are going to take care of your loved one. They're going to provide them with the care that they need and the supervision that they need. But unfortunately, that's not always the case. Someone is injured, someone is assaulted. Someone may even be sexually assaulted. Maybe they are just neglected and they get bed sores from laying in the same spot. They are dehydrated because they haven't received any type of water for some period of time. They've been ignored for some period of time. They've been abused because the orderlies and people who are working there, they have records that demonstrate that they are going to abuse patients. And the nursing home did nothing about background checks or anything to protect your loved one in a nursing home. It's very important that you make sure you contact an attorney immediately upon hearing anything about the notion of abuse in a nursing home in West Virginia. And here's why. You want to make sure that you get a copy of the contract when you put that loved one into the nursing home. Because on many occasions in cases in nursing homes in West Virginia, that contract will spell out how you are to resolve conflicts. And on many times in a very small print, there's language that talks about mandatory arbitration, which means you are limited in the recovery you can get for your family or your loved one in a nursing home incident in West Virginia. So please contact an attorney. Make sure you give them that contract and you give them all the information they need immediately upon hearing about your loved one being abused or ignored or neglected in a nursing home in West Virginia. Also, we see all throughout West Virginia, we see issues and instances of medical malpractice. Now, medical malpractice is a touchy subject because on many occasions, your loved one is going to the hospital seeking help from an injury or seeking help as a result of a sickness or an illness, and they're not getting the care that they deserve. The person or the medical professional breached the standard of care that they were owed to your loved one or to you. And all of a sudden someone gets injured or they misdiagnose someone. And instead of locating something that could have been treated in a timely fashion, now all of a sudden was allowed to progress over time because it was just simply missed. And the person didn't make that connection, or they didn't document something, or they didn't tell you all of the injuries that you were facing or how serious your injury was. or they neglected to give you all of the information you needed prior to going into surgery. They didn't tell you about all the nuances and the risks that were associated with the surgery. And something unfortunately happens as a result of that. And now you as a loved one is set there without your person you sent to that hospital because maybe they have passed away as a result of the negligence or the disregard or the reckless disregard of a medical professional. That's when you want to contact an attorney because things disappear very, very quickly. People get transferred to a different hospital. Nurses and assistants and orderlies, they forget things. And now they're moved to a different section or they're being promoted. And all of a sudden they're not entitled to different documents in that system. Please contact an attorney immediately because we can get certain documents. We can subpoena certain documents. We can send out investigators to speak to certain people and make sure we get that testimony before things change and before things disappear. Now, another injury we see all throughout West Virginia, another premises injury we see is dealing with different superstores like Walmart. They have huge parking lots or they're in this huge locations where it's tons of people going in and out of that store. There's shopping carts all over the place. There's people moving, there's people cleaning. There's a huge organization business in West Virginia, all throughout West Virginia. And a lot of times people get injured on their property, whether it be on the sidewalk, going into the store, in the parking lot. And I've seen cases where someone's walking into the store and on the left or on the right, you have all those carts that are being pushed through. They're being pushed through from the back and the person from the back can't see who's walking in front and they just push the carts into a person and that person gets injured. There's aisles where there's stuff in the aisles. So there's things falling off of shelves and there are things that are on the floor as a result of something spilling and they didn't inspect and they don't have a routine inspection and people get injured because something's on the floor, something's in the alleyway obstructing their walkway and people get injured as a result of that. They may be entitled to compensation because it happened on the property at the negligence of someone else, and they were owed they had a duty to inspect their premises and make sure it was safe for people who were invited to come there and do business. And Walmart does a ton of business in the state of West Virginia, and many times people get injured on their property, and they should seek out an attorney to make sure their interests are protected. And again, if you're injured on that property, Walmart will follow the same MO. They will call you to the back, fill out your accident report, make sure you take a picture of it, take a picture of the names and everyone else around. Now, don't do any secret recordings. You don't want to do that. Just do it open and obvious. Take pictures. Hey, you mind if I take a picture of this? You mind if I get your name and put it in my phone and make sure I save this so I can document this situation? Don't sign anything when it comes to any releases. Don't go back and try to settle anything. Don't offer anything as a result of your injury. Again, they may try to offer you something to settle quickly. Someone may call you at your home or at your job within 24 hours, maybe a couple of days, and call you and say, hey, I understand you were injured. Do you have any injuries right now? How are you feeling? We want to make sure that you feel good and you can come back. We'll offer you this gift certificate or, a little bit something for your injuries. It doesn't sound like you have a lot of out of pocket. It looks like insurance paid for everything. We'll cover that. If just come in and sign some documents, please call a lawyer. If it's just to review those documents, call a lawyer and make sure you have your interests protected when dealing with someone like Walmart for injury that happens on their property in West Virginia. Now, another thing we see all throughout the state of West Virginia, we talk about injuries to people on the premises, but as a result of an animal. For example, dog bites of little kids. There are people walking around, they're getting their exercise, walking around in their community, in their cul-de-sac, and all of a sudden a dog is loose. And it's a dangerous dog that has bit people in the past. And now it bites a 4-year-old or bites an adult. It bites an elderly person, and that person has injuries as a result of that dog bite, and they miss work, and they have to go to the doctor. They have medical expenses. That person may be entitled to compensation because of that incident, because that owner did not keep that dog safe and keep everyone around them safe by putting the dog on a leash and protected them in a gate, because they had already demonstrated in the past that they were willing to bite someone in a dangerous manner or act and bark and try to scare someone in a dangerous manner. And that those bites into permanent scarring. Someone has to grow up with that scarring. Someone has to go out in public with that scarring and live with that for the rest of their lives. They may be entitled to compensation. And that is why you want to contact a lawyer immediately for someone who suffers a dog bite as a result of the negligence of someone else, of an owner, anywhere throughout the state of West Virginia. Sadly, another thing we see throughout the state of West Virginia is wrongful death. And that is a very it's a touchy subject because now someone has died as a result of the negligence or sometimes just the disregard for someone else's life, whether it be through a violent crime or whether it be through someone as a result of medical malpractice. Someone dies as a result of the negligence or the illegal or unlawful acts of someone else. They may be entitled, their family may be entitled to compensation. And then sometimes you have to set up an estate and make sure that person who's the executor of that state is leading the lawsuit because they are the point person that will deal with the attorney and stand in as the representative of the deceased person. Again, there are timelines you want to make sure you abide by. It's a very emotionally charged action, but please call a lawyer sooner rather than later. I know there's a lot you have to deal with family, you have to deal with funeral expenses and funeral arrangements. Once all that's done and you had an opportunity to reflect, please reach out to an attorney, have a conversation. It may be a situation where the attorney says, there's nothing we can do at this point. It may be a situation where they say, yes, someone is liable for the death of that person, and we want to make sure you get the compensation you deserve as a result of that. Again, it's a very touchy subject, but please push through. Make sure you have that conversation with an attorney. The conversation and the consultation is free, but you need to get that information to make sure you know how best to proceed in the wrongful death of your loved one. Another injury we see in the state of West Virginia, we see product liability and defective products who have gone in the stream of commerce and they've been put out there to operate a certain way. And all of a sudden they don't operate in the manner in which they were supposed to be operating. And all of a sudden it's a defective product and it causes the injury of someone else. For example, a car, and the defective product is the airbag and it doesn't function in a manner in which it's supposed to function. You may be entitled to compensation. Someone orders something in the mail and it doesn't operate in the way it's supposed to. For example, rollerblades, and you order some rollerblades from the store and you get the rollerblades and the wheel just falls off and someone's injured. You may have an action against the manufacturer because the product was made and manufactured ineffectively in a defective manner. So you want to make sure you understand your rights when it comes to that. Also, in the state of West Virginia, we talk about injuries as a result of workplace accidents, construction sites. Anytime you're walking by a construction site or you're driving through a construction site and someone gets injured as a result of a construction worker or something falling on a vehicle, falling on a person, unfortunately, there are many ways in which someone can get injured. And no matter how you get injured, you want to make sure you get the advice you need from your medical professional. Make sure you are safe. They take care of your injuries. Make sure it's documented through a police report or any other report, whether it be in the store or incident report or anything else, and then make sure you contact an attorney to really investigate the injuries, whether it be workplace injuries, construction place injuries, a defective product. Make sure you speak with an attorney so they can investigate and find out what compensation you are entitled to. Now, regardless how you are injured, you may be entitled to compensation. Now, the issue is the attorney you choose. Now, our practice, we specialize in personal injury cases. We can handle those personal injury cases, whether you're injured as a result of the negligence of someone else in a car accident, a medical malpractice, nursing home, construction site, dog bite, casino, premises liability. However you're injured, we can talk about the compensation you are entitled to. We will negotiate with the companies to make sure we get a reasonable settlement for your injuries that you are entitled to. However, if those negotiations fall through and we're not able to reach a reasonable settlement for you, then we are more than willing to hire the investigators, hire whatever we need to make sure your case is heard and you get your day in court. We have tried the cases. We've tried the cases year after year against many different defendants, and we're not afraid to take those cases to trial. But we have to get all the information we need from you. And that includes you doing your due diligence, you taking your pictures, you filing out your reports, you staying away from the insurance company, not giving them any statements that they can use against you later on in your case. Thanks for listening and tuning in for this episode of the West Virginia Injury Lawyer Podcast. We really enjoyed you and appreciate you tuning in and listening to this information. Any questions, feel free to contact us online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at frankwalkerlaw.com. You can also contact us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 412-532-6805. Again, 412-532-6805.